I believe that there is a new Scramble and Partition of Africa, which is the Scramble and Partition of the African mind. And what does that mean? What that means is that the world is no longer coming to Africa to control the continent with guns and with fighting and wars. No, that's not happening. Hello friend, my name is Amoni Munyaneza. I am super excited to be here again to continue a conversation we started last time about value. And last time I shared with you the fact that Africa has to learn to create and to package value to export to the rest of the world. Because the world right now is all about value creation. Everybody is creating value. You are not invited to the global conversation if you don't have value to exchange. It is no longer a war of color. It's no longer a war of nations. We are in a war for value. And with the emergence of the internet and computer programming and AI, people can actually create value faceless. You don't even have to see them. So that's something that is exciting for Africa, that we get to create value, and we have a lot of resources from which we can create value. Africa does not lack resources. We don't lack the raw materials for creating value. We've got minerals, we've got the fertile land, we've got a youthful population, we've got vast swaths of land, we've got wild animals. I mean, talk about it, we got it. Africa's got it. As a continent, we are so rich, we are so valuable. What is missing is, how do we now take all these resources and all this wealth and package it and create value? That's what we talked about last time. But I also shared with you about the fact that it's not enough to create value. We have now to defend our value. Sometimes we have to get out of the door, and see who is out there, who is trying to destroy our value. And someone has to get up right now and go and find out who is attacking our value. So we have to defend value. We have to defend our value. And I talked about the fact that the war that is happening in Congo right now, it's a war that we can solve overnight if we decided to ask the question, how do we now forget about what divides us and focus on how do we actually defend our value as Africans? Because the African value has been under attack for many years, since the days of the Berlin Conference, when Africa was partitioned and basically served on the platter to the rest of the world. Our value has been attacked. So now we have to figure out, how do we now defend value? Now today I want to talk about a subject that is very sensitive to many people. And I have to be kind as I dissect this conversation, this subject, and it's the subject of the scramble and partition of the mind. Now, I know that you've heard about the scramble and partition of Africa. The scramble and partition of Africa happened many years ago. It happened in Berlin when the rest of the world gathered together and decided that Europe has to have a piece of Africa. Every continent, every country in Europe had a piece of Africa. That was the scramble and partition of Africa. And then what happened is that after many years, almost 100 years of colonization, Africa started fighting for independence. A lot of countries became independent around the early 60s. And now we have independent countries with presidents, with elections, hopefully, in some countries. But we have a certain level of political freedom. We have a certain level of democracy. That's the word I was looking for. But are we free? Has the scramble and partition of Africa ended? I believe that there is a new scramble and partition of Africa, which is the scramble and partition of the African mind. And what does that mean? What that means is that the world is no longer coming to Africa to control the continent with guns and with fighting and wars. No, that's not happening. There's no European army bringing in ships to come and conquer, big swaths of land. That's not happening. What is happening is a war of ideas. It's a war of the mind. It's a war where, the world has to come to Africa now and carve out sections of Africa where they can exert control. And by exerting control, the world can now exploit the African resources. The world can now get diamonds and gold and coltan and all the minerals that the world needs today to make microchips, to make computers, to make EV batteries. So, but how do you now get the African resources if you don't control the land anymore because the continent is free? How do you get the resources? How do you now stop Africa from developing its resources into finished products so that Africa continues to become a supplier of raw materials instead of a supplier of finished products? How do you do that? That's a question that the rest of the world is asking. How do we make sure that Africa continues to supply raw materials and doesn't get to have a revelation that they too can create finished products? How do we do that? The way we do that is we get into the minds. We get into the system, the African systems. We get into the African politics, the economy. We get into African religion. And we carve out a piece of the mind. We do what I call the scramble and partition of the mind. Now, what we have in Africa today is a colonialism that is not a colonialism of property. We have a colonialism of legacy, right? It's a legacy colonialism because now, I have talked about the war in Congo, and I think I can talk about it again and again. But what happens is when something happens in a formerly French colony, France comes out and they have to say something. When something happens in a formerly Belgian colony, Belgium comes out and says something. What does that mean? That means that we may be free from the land colonialism, but we've got a legacy of colonialism. And legacy is not only nations coming to Africa, it's also about ideas that never left, right? It's about clothing, it's about how we think, it's about how we undermine our culture, our dances, our fashion, and we glorify other fashions and other cultures because we think that what we have is inferior, and that is called the colonialism of legacy, because we have a legacy that devalues our value and glorifies other people's value. And as long as we are doing that, we are always going to be playing catch up because we think that our mind has to be set free, or we have to be allowed to do certain things. We have to seek permission. And the world actually reminds us that we have to seek permission. So when Rwanda recently decided to defend its borders against intrusion, the whole world said, you can't do that. You can't defend your borders. You have to get permission. And the question is, why do I have to get permission to defend my nation, my territory? Why do I have to seek permission? But for some reason, someone actually believes that you have to seek permission to defend yourself. You have to seek permission to decide what you eat. You have to seek permission. That is called the scramble and partition of the mind. I want to have a piece of your mind. So true independence does not happen until we break free in the mind. Until the mind is free, Africa is still colonized. And you ask me, is Africa still colonized? And I will say, it is. And then we talk about aid and economic independence, right? And you realize that that Africa has not been economically independent. You see, there is no independence until you can decide what you're going to eat and how you're going to sleep and how you're going to educate your children and how you're going to build your buildings and build your roads and how you're going to do your healthcare. There is no independence without economic independence. And as long as we're not economically independent, we are not independent. And as long as we are on aid, we are living on aid, we are living on support, and some people have called it neo-colonialism, neo-colonial shackles. I call it bondage. And recently, I think there's been a lot of stories in the news about U.S. aid, about the U.S. stopping sending aid to Africa and the rest of the world. And people have cried about the fact that America has stopped to give us free money. But the question is, why are we getting free money? See, U.S. aid is American value. America has worked hard for many years to create amazing. America is one of the richest countries in the world. It's a powerful nation. How did they become powerful? When America was being founded, we had kingdoms in Africa that had more money than all of Europe combined. Some of the richest men in the world are from Africa. Some of the African kings were some of the richest people in the world. Africa began writing before the rest of the world could figure out writing ABC. America went from nothing to being the most powerful country in the world. They created value and they gave us some of their value, and now they're saying, hey, we're not giving you our value anymore. We're keeping it to ourselves. And I think America is in its 100% rightful place to say, we will share our value with whoever we want to share it, and we will withhold it from whoever we want to withhold it from. So what do we do when America withholds their value from us? It's a lesson in history, it's a lesson in the present, and it's a lesson for the future that one day we are going to wake up and Africa has no money coming from Europe or from the rest of the world. One day we are going to wake up, as I said in my last episode, we are going to wake up one day and we'll find out that we don't have an international community, we have national interests. So my request for every young person in Africa is get your mind decolonized and understand that the whole world is creating value for itself, and it is a world of value exchange. And we can't be surviving on imported value. We have to create local value and export some, and if we need some of the value from the rest of the world, we exchange value for value. Nothing is for free. And one day we're going to wake up one day and there is no charity. That day is coming. But I say, we can start preparing now such that when that day comes, we're economically free. And why not give some charity to America one of these days?